Hello! Today I'm going to be talking about some DM tools that I personally use regularly for generating things, just coming up with ideas that I think could be really useful. Maybe you'll know about some, maybe you won't. Yeah, let's get right into it. So first off, Waterball. They're typically map generators. They have a range of different things that are really crazy. Yeah, over the last few years I've seen it evolve from just like a simple town maker where it just comes up with a couple of blocks on a map, right, to realms, kingdoms. You've got all the way down from dungeon scale, so it can generate a couple of room dungeons which you can change around using tags, the sort of stuff. So you could have it be more expansive or more like labyrinthian. You can have it be flooded, for example, partially flooded or mostly flooded. Yeah, all does it in a classic sort of style, looks like a pencil on paper. But something that I really love that they have is, so for example on their city generators and their mansion generator, you can look at it from a 3D scale. So you'll have the blueprints and their like outlined map, which you'd normally see on like a VTT or something. And then you can swap that to a 3D model of the city and the of the mansion, and you can change around the colours and stuff, so you can customize it to however you like. Personally, I found this really useful for players. If you describe, you're describing, for example, in the case of the mansion, describing this big mansion, and a player, maybe they have an idea of, okay, I sort of know the grounds, right? But what does it look like? Maybe they can't get an idea of the visual of how tall, or even just yourself as a GM, right? All these sprawling rooms that you find in a dungeon, well, what does the dungeon actually look like? Typically they're underground, so you don't really notice it. In the case of this mansion though, you can get a visual representation and you can spin it around so you can have a look from all different angles what it might look like, the perspective of players sneaking up to it or something, coming from one end or coming from another. You could get a completely different vibe from building if you're heading from the down like a front lane to reach it, or like I mentioned, sneaking players, if you're maybe sneaking around a hill or something from some woodlands into the back, sneaking through the back door, right? You get a completely different vibe and perspective of what the house looks like. So they have a lot of great stuff, all free. I believe they have some donation stuff, so I'd highly recommend donating to them because, yeah, incredible, just incredible design work. The next one is Donjon. Now you've probably heard about this. Everybody that I know uses it in some capacity. It is generates lists and various things like that. So you got NPCs, place names from all different regions and different parts in time. You can have like ancient world. You can have like to modern day. There's even some sci-fi stuff. Typically D&D, D20 focused, but I believe they have a section for sci-fi, cyberpunk, and weird, which is like a Call of Cthulhu sort of stuff. On top of having just like name and place stuff, they also have prophecies, omens, and portents, which I really love. In an instance, I've had a randomly generated prophecy that I just put in a dungeon with some dungeon graffiti. That's another one that they have. And I hadn't really thought about it further than just generating it and having it as a note in my dungeon. And what I'd use this with was when the players come across it, they read it out and they go, okay, well, what is this prophecy? And all the players start theorizing and coming up with ideas. And it's I use that then when the players come up with ideas. Oh, is it this place? Is it that place? Maybe this is what it means, right? I then use that to prep down the line. Okay, let's twist it round. Rather than it's for me prepping, it's for the players to do the prep for me, which is, hey, the players like being right, okay? And it was just a random thing that it puts together. I'll generate one up here. So there's this one here, and it's in the Kingdom of Crowns. When the moon is crowned and east becomes west, the sword of allegiance shall be found. So when east becomes west, that's a really interesting thing. So what does that actually mean? In our game that I ran, that was part of one of the prophecies that was brought up. And what I then went and did was there's a western part of the province. It was a dividing line, so it divided both the province from east and west in the centre of this kingdom, but I also had a tavern that the parties visited. So the tavern, while it was of the Western realm, it had cuisine and things like that that was from the Eastern kingdoms. So when the players went there, they thought, oh, wait a minute, this is a place of significance. We're in a bridge town that borders East and West. You know, this is when East becomes West, but also we're in the tavern itself. It's when East meets West, isn't it? Because you've got these like foods and stuff like that, and the man from the East in this town in the West. So I had all that sort of stuff, and I got all that just from that one little line of text. And the players spent I don't even know how long coming up with different theories. So I love it. They also have a dungeon generator, which is great to use. You can make like mega dungeons with these things. I think they even have an infinite dungeon generator, so you just keep on scrolling and scrolling and scrolling if that's something you're into. The dungeon generator for this is a bit more extensive than the one for Waterball, but Waterball's is a bit of a cleaner design. So the next one is Dungeon Sprawl. I've been playing in person a lot more, and so I haven't been using as visually detailed maps as I used to. I used to use a lot of like battle maps and things like that, and every room would have it would be like really nicely made. While now I'm basically just have the outline of each room, and then a star shape or an X marks the spot if there's anything important, such as a statue. And the reason I put this here is because both Waterball's dungeon generator and Donjons are compatible. So you can download the file and then upload it into Dungeon Sprawl, and it'll convert it straight there, and you can play around with it, change it, add rooms, remove rooms, all that sort of stuff. Really useful too. There's a lot of things from 2 Minute Tabletop, fantastic website which has tokens, battle maps, anything you really need visually for D&D, you name it, they'll likely have it. A lot of their stuff is also on Dungeon Sprawl, free of charge, just a drag and drop. And yeah, you can decorate your dungeons with it if you want more decorative dungeons. So if you're like me and you use Photoshop to design overworld maps and posters and that sort of stuff for your D&D games, this might be something that interests you. It's a set of historical cartography legends that you can download as brushes for Photoshop and use. It's everything from towns, you've got mountains in there, swamplands, and there's various different ones, all from across different centuries, from about 1700s, I'd say, 1800s, some more intricate than others. And this website just has a bunch of them to download free of charge. I've used them very successfully. My players have really liked them. Something that I used as well is I made a PNG background with the brush stamped on there as a tile for Roll20. So I could put it across on a hex scroll and just add to it on Roll20 for my overworld map. So Pilm.com shows illustrated reconstructions of archaeological and historical sites, so you get to see what medieval villages, castles, towns, churches would have looked like. They're beautifully painted, illustrated, and I personally love to use them as a tool for visualizing like townscapes. It lets me know sort of where things actually would have been, what streets and sort of the thing like that would look like, as well as for designing dungeons in like castles. You get to know the layout of like what a proper castle would be like for historical accuracy. On a thing for historical accuracy, in the past I've done a fair bit of historically accurate names, or at least trying to use them. Bosworth Toller's Anglo-Saxon Dictionary is something that I've used just to be able to pull it up, go through and take names for constructing place names and things like that, just so it feels a little more alive. Works really well for ancient and older sort of locations, because as an English speaker you hear these, it sounds familiar, but then it's just like a step removed linguistically, and I think that can have a great impact for world building. So those are things that I use that are free. Some things that have also helped me is the Lazy GM's Guide, which is by Sly Flourish. I've got both the toolbook and the Lazy GM's Guide, or Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, somewhere on a shelf here. So yeah, is that a bit glossy? There you go. Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, and then I've also got the Lazy DM's workbook. I've done a lot of 5e stuff in the past, but now I'm kind of moving away from that. Even though it is kind of geared towards 5e, everything in there is really useful to use to bring across into other games. Another book is the RPG Gameplay Guide by James D'Amato. Really useful. You can see I've got loads of notes in here. What are these even on? That's one on engagement with players. And then I've got another one here. What is this? How does this work? Making choices. Using a card there as a bookmark. I don't have many bookmarks apparently. Yeah, it's got loads of stuff in it, and it's helped me over the years, especially with prepping session zeros, just understanding the genre and tone. I come from a media background, so it's a very similar thing there for creating works of media, like films, short films and things like that. In pre-production, well, it kind of carries over into games, for at least in my experience for TTRPGs, and that experience setting it into a genre and a tone, I hadn't thought about it as in depth until I read this book, and it was a real help. Obviously, I'm not sponsored or anything like that. Definitely not big enough for anything like that. But yeah, they've got loads of things. Just reading it out, like understanding an audience. They've got stating the objective, which is explanation of how to create goals and aids in collaboration. All sorts on like session zero, understanding the text, making important choices, pacing, and as I mentioned before, engagement with players. I know sometimes that's a big thing that I see a lot of posts online on things like Reddit, people talking about players not engaging. Well, this book could really help. I definitely recommend it. It's at least worth a read, especially even just to pick up something RPG related when you're away from the DM screen and everything like that. As I might have mentioned in the past, I see DMing as a craft, and like any craft, you have to work at it to be able to improve. And a lot of that does come with time, but also, you know, you put in the research, then you can get better. But you don't really have to always, you know, spend money on these things. The tools and things like that are out there. I guess this video might count as one of them. But yeah, pages like Reddit, lots of forums, are great places to look for GM's tools and advice and stuff. Definitely recommend just Googling around. So I hope this has been at least useful in some way. Maybe you haven't heard of some of the stuff. I know the Anglo-Saxon dictionary is a bit of a niche one, and it doesn't really fit for many games. But in one or two games that I've run in the past, yeah, it has for me. So, and hey, maybe it can give you some inspiration. If you've got any tools that you use, especially if they're free ones, let me know in the comment section below. I would love to chat about you with that. I'm always looking for new things to help me as a DM, constantly trying to improve as the sessions go on, especially me now playing a game that I'm kind of new with, I guess. I'm a couple of months in now, but yeah, always wanting to get better and improve, you know. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Take care and look after yourself. Bye-bye now. Ooh, blue. Spooky.